Alright, so I did my artifacts on the cast iron wood stove and the dry sink. And the writing process for those two artifacts was the hardest, I have to say, out of everything that I had to do. There wasn't much information, especially on the dry sink, so really coming up with the 2 paragraph on an artifact, I thought it was going to be easy, but it was hard. I was stuck a lot. I had to go back and, find more web pages on this artifact, even though there wasn't really anything. So it was really hard. I mean, I was surprised. I was really surprised. I thought when you first said 2 paragraphs on this artifact, I was going to be like, oh, okay, this is going to be easy. Go through it like that. But no, it took me a lot longer than I thought, and I didn't want to be repetitive either. So I had to take that into consideration when I was writing. And the development of my thesis wasn't too bad. How I found it was I did research on my artifacts, and then what there wasn't too much information on, I kind of developed my thesis that way, and then I can do more research. And so that made it easier to write my paper because I tried not to come up with a thesis that there wasn't any information, then I couldn't really support my thesis. So I felt like I did pretty good with that, and it wasn't too hard coming up with a thesis and with the supporting arguments. It wasn't that hard either. But the development of my historical question was pretty hard, though. I didn't want it to be too vague or, too specific, and I didn't really want it. I just really wanted it to be good. It was hard coming up with my question, especially since it had to be a level 2, so it's kind of like, well, I had to think of something general but not too general, and it was hard. It took me a lot longer than I thought it would, that's for sure. And then the hardships in the research project was finding enough sources, especially for the dry sink. You said there had to be 3 to 5, and I found like 3, barely 3. I found 2, and then it took me a long time to find my third, but it was hard. The cast iron stove wasn't too bad. There was quite a bit of information on it, not like excessive, but there was enough to write a 2-page and find enough sources to write my paper on it. And then what I learned was, I guess, really how to do research. I mean, I've never really done a research paper because I just got out of high school and I didn't do much of it in high school. So I really learned how to do research, find keywords to find more, maybe learn about the history to, come up with, some information on my research. So, I mean, this will definitely help me for future research papers that I have to do, and it actually did. And sources, I like the sources for the cast iron wood stove. I even found a YouTube video on the cast iron stove, which was pretty cool, so I definitely like that. But the dry sink, I mean, they're okay. I mean, I felt like I did the best what I could with what I had. So, I mean, I looked in Wikipedia, the Library of Congress. I mean, there's nothing on the dry sink in those. So I felt like a few of the sources were repetitive, but I felt like that's all there was, so I had to use them, so I wasn't too happy with them. But, I mean, it's the best that I had, so I used them. And then what I learned was that there isn't that much out there with a lot of the artifacts. I was surprised, with so many, history is such a big deal these days. I would think there would be tons of information on, like, these types of artifacts. Especially for the dry sink. I mean, it was used, for the longest time, and I would think there would be a lot more on it, but there wasn't. So I was pretty surprised. And then what I felt good about going into the paper was the fact that I was going to be learning, history, kind of learning it more than just sitting in a class listening, to someone telling us something. I was actually, doing research and then finding, more about these artifacts. So that's what I felt, good about learning about these artifacts. And I've always thought the cast iron stove was pretty cool, and I think they're neat. And I was pretty eager about learning about those. So I would say overall, the project was pretty good. I mean, it could have gone worse, but I guess it could have been better. I guess I just had trouble with the dry sink, but I felt, there's probably enough information to write a 2-paragraph, and I don't think many people did it, so I kind of wanted to do it and, push through it. So I felt overall that, I did my best, and I felt that, it was, I think it's a pretty good paper, so yeah.